From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good morning to the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Today is June 11th. Board to reconvene. The first item is roll call.
Supervisor Gleason.
Go Bruins.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez. Here.
The next item is the salute to the flag. It's going to be held this morning by, or going to be led this morning by Margot Rezan, our County Counsel. And at the conclusion of that, please remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation, whichever you prefer.
Salute. Pledge.
Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. All items listed with a C or a CA above them are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. We can act on those all in one motion. If any member of the public is here that would like to make a comment about any of those items or ask for any of those items to be given separate consideration by the board, a board member would have to request that, but you can request that of the board. Today, all of our items 3 through 27 are on the consent calendar. I could go through each page, but I think it's easier if I just tell you all the items 3 through 27 are on the consent calendar. Only items 1 and 2 are off. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment about any of the items on the consent calendar or ask for separate consideration of any of them? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board for a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
You have a motion?
Second.
A second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. That takes us back to page 2 under public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda, but is under the jurisdiction of the board. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public presentation? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name, and proceed. If there's anyone else, could we get you to come to the front row and so we can get you to the microphone quickly? Mr. Anderson, didn't see you back there. Morning.
Good to see you, sir. Good morning, Chairman Couch, Board. My name is Richard Anderson. I'm the president of Kern Law Enforcement Association. I represent approximately 520 members, sergeants, deputies, DA investigators, and senior deputies. That number has just shrunk by 1 today. Today, Sergeant Frisbee, it's his last day at the Kern County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Frisbee has been with our department for approximately 15 years. He is leaving our department to go to Inyo County to be a regular deputy. Recently, Sergeant Frisbee was on the 23 News discussing how he copes with stress by exercise and doing triathletes and such. And I had the privilege of working with Sergeant Frisbee at the Lightning in the Bottle Festival. Sergeant Frisbee works the east area of the county, and I work down here in Bakersfield, so we don't cross paths very often. The question that I wanted to ask him as his president, representing him at the Kern Law Enforcement Association, was why was he leaving? And you know, that answer changes varying with different people. He was very modest, he was very humble. If you know Sergeant Frisbee, he's a very quiet spoken leader. He just told me, he said that he didn't see hope in the future for the sheriff's office, which I'll get back to that. And he didn't talk bad about the sheriff's office. He didn't say anything that the sheriff's office had wronged him in any way, but he just didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And he felt it was best for his well-being and his family's well-being for him to leave. And he said this quietly. He wasn't trying to broadcast it throughout the department. And he subsequently left pretty quietly. I asked him for permission to be able to get up here and tell you this story. This story seems, it's very pervasive in our department right now. Words have meaning when you guys get in front of the camera and you say things. There's people on the fence in our department who are literally, do I stay or do I go? Based on things that this board and Mr. Allstop actually say to the public. We need hope. We don't have much of it right now. I got up here 2 years ago and Mr. Gleason told me that hope, basically hope was gonna be here in a few years. Well, that's 2 years now and we haven't really seen much change. I get it, I understand. I'm gonna take your word for it that we don't have the money, but it's not my job to find the money. It's your job to reach out to the public and express to the public the need to adequately staff our department. So it's the last 1 cent sales tax measure, KLEA got some of the blame for it not passing. I find that, honestly, my members find it offensive. We tried, we did what we could. It was put on a ballot 2 months before the election, but it should have been put on the ballot probably a year prior, and it should have been done by this board. And all of us should have been in a boat rowing in the same direction so we wouldn't be here at this moment right now. If we don't do anything, the sheriff said, well, if we did something right now, the sheriff said it would take 4 to 6 years to fix this problem. We can no longer not do anything. If we don't do anything for another year, we're gonna lose another additional 50 to 100 deputies. People are leaving. Most of the people I talk to either have applications into other departments or looking elsewhere. They're tired of staffing. I'm gonna leave you with one story. As a Metro Patrol Sergeant, my deputies responded to an individual trying to steal a vehicle. They get there, they confront the individual. He becomes combative, he gets in a fighting stance. My deputies ask, is there anything I can do to get you to cooperate? His response was, you can get in your, you know what car and drive away. Well, that wasn't an option for our deputies. Foot pursuit, they take him into custody, they wrestle him around. My deputy is cut. The suspect is cut and has blood on him. My deputy has his blood on him. I get there to the scene. EMS is treating the suspect. The fire department is treating our deputy. I see in my deputy's eyes, he's upset. And I find out that the suspect is claiming that he's HIV positive. And my deputy has an open cut on his hand, and he has the suspect's blood all over him. I could see in that deputy's eyes where he was thinking about his wife and his kids, and 6 months down the road, if he has a positive HIV test, if it would be caused from this encounter with this individual. But what upset me the most was, as I was talking to him, trying to console him, the lack of hope in his eyes. He kept saying, well, this doesn't even seem worth it to me to get into this altercation with this deputy. I've never seen that in my career, ever. It took me by surprise. Actually, it kept me up at night. I sat up in my bed and I literally thought about that deputy, and I brought him into my office on Monday and I talked to him. And he said, just with everything going on, Sarge, even if we take that guy into custody, he's gonna be released in 2 days. And is it really worth it? Is it really worth all that drama? And I said, well, we can't think that way. We have to go out there and we have to do the very best we can. So anyways, just to wrap this up, we do need some hope. We need some light at the end of the tunnel. We need to stop going back and forth and arguing and figure out some solutions. The board, KLEA, the sheriff, everybody. Like I said, we need to get in the boat and row in the same direction and fix this issue, because it's only going to get bigger. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mr. Anderson, thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Go Bruins.
Go Pats.
Go back.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. I know it's not easy being down there, and I appreciate what you're doing. And let me not, what I'm hearing you say is, and tell me where I'm wrong, you're equating hope with money.
We need money. That's the only way that this problem is going to be fixed. I can't sugarcoat it for you guys. We need more money.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you very much, and I understand that.
Yeah.
My question is there anything, hope is a big spectrum.
Yeah.
Money's smaller. Are there any other elements of hope, other than the money, that we can address right now? Is there anything we, as a board, under your recommendations or what your thoughts can do, other than through the negotiations with the union, to help the morale of our sheriff's department?
We've gone way beyond that. There's nothing. The staffing crisis that we have, I could give you, and I could sit up here for an hour and tell you story after story about just how bad it is out there, but we've gone beyond it. The staffing is probably one of the #1 morale killers in the department. When you literally are 45 minutes from your backup and you're dealing with the problems that we deal with. I mean, summer, I considered last week pretty much the first day of summer, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sitting in my patrol car looking at the screen, and when a person with a butcher knife walking down Beardsley, swinging it at people, when that call pens for 30 minutes, we have a public safety crisis in Kern County. I don't know how, I mean, it's a true story. I responded to it, as a supervisor. So I'm responding to calls and getting in the middle of calls that I should not. My job is to stand back and make sure that the job is done properly. So 1, we don't get sued, and 2, it's done correctly. I mean, civil liability, everything comes down to that. So to answer your question, I don't know how to sugarcoat it, but money is the only thing that's going to solve this. We need people, and we can't lower our hiring standards. That's never been successful in any agency, and do your research on that. When you lower your hiring standards, you have problems 3 to 4 years later. Massive problems. And we've seen that with the we've had deputies that betrayed public trust. I don't want to see that. I get up every morning, put my uniform on, and I do the very best job that I could do because I love this community. I was born and raised in this community. I care about this community, or I would have left a long time ago. Sorry if I hopefully answered.
No, it's good. Thank you. And I agree with your assessment of Sergeant Frisbee. He was loved
Yes.
in the KIV. He did a great job up there. He really identified with the community and did a great job.
Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Anderson, don't go away. Supervisor Perez.
Anderson, thank you so much for your compelling presentation. Sergeant Anderson, excuse me.
Yeah, my fault, Sergeant.
Excuse me. How would you characterize KLEA's role in the last round of when our sheriff attempted to get some extra revenue, desperately needed revenue, and we placed this matter on the ballot? How would you characterize KLEA's investment, and do you see that changing? Should there be a consideration for this moving forward? Because my sheriff tells me this is the only solution he sees is the sales tax increase. And so he appears to be all in, and I certainly would want to hear from him in the future when we can talk about this issue properly. But how would you characterize that, and where do you feel your body is in taking such an issue on again? Because it's not an easy issue in Kern County.
No, absolutely not. I was on the board when the Measure I was presented, and one of our board members came to us and asked for $25,000 to support Measure I. Our board was going to put out the money to endorse Measure I. If you know anything about, there's PAC funds and there's PIC funds. We only had $10,000 in our PIC fund. We used every single dime. We couldn't take money from our PAC fund and put it into our PIC fund, or we would have done it and probably done, hopefully maybe a little bit better job putting the message out there to the public. But at the end of the day, I've heard people blame the sheriff that he didn't do enough and blame KLEA. But you're asking a lot for an initiative for 2 months. There was people, Kathy Abernathy got on the news and she torpedoed it. And say what you want. We all have to get together if we're going to do that. And honestly, it's got to come from you guys first. And then we'll jump on board and help. So I hope I answered your question.
I've heard from you now for years up here. I know much of your struggles in our conversations outside of this room. And I am so grateful for you, Sergeant. And I hope that we can come together and move in a direction that prioritizes our public safety family, because there is no reason why we shouldn't have the best funded public safety program in California. I believe that we can do that. If this community will prioritize the morale, well-being, and families of our law enforcement, I think we're way past due. I'm on board and am interested in working with my colleagues, because like you said, I think a unified front is so critical, and I look forward to moving forward with you on that and ask you to just please hang in there and know that my colleagues are very frustrated with this reality too. We have a homelessness crisis that is not just here, but many parts of the country, but really problematic for many, many people. And certainly, that is not going to be a priority when you have a guy at Beardsley with a dagger. It's just not going to happen. We don't have the resources, we don't have the bodies, and we don't have the morale within our ranks. This is also true of our detentions deputies. So I appreciate you bringing this forward on a regular basis, so we are forced to think about it and think about the families and lives of people who are so dramatically impacted by what is happening here on the forefront. So again, thank you. I want to work with you. I know this board wants to solve this problem. And so thank you again for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Sergeant,
Yes,
hang on one second, if you would. I want to ask Mr. Also if he wants to respond, because I don't know any other way to, sort of offer hope to your group, your constituency, other than, on our agenda almost every week these days is a conference with labor negotiators. And we are constantly discussing what can be done for a myriad of groups, including yours. And I know that we may be even discussing, I'm not sure all the groups we're going to discuss today because they're all on here, but I know that the CAO's office is, and they don't announce this, they don't get on the news and talk about it, but they're constantly working for and looking for ideas of ways that we can improve the morale through more compensation. Mr. Alsop, do you want to make any brief comment about that you think
Sure.
is even appropriate? Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Just to make an official announcement, we are prioritizing the Sheriff's Department. If any other department has any questions about that, they shouldn't, because I'm saying officially that my office, in looking at the budget and in thinking about addressing salary issues, the Sheriff's Department is the priority, and that's where we've been for the last 3 years since I've been here. This is I think my third budget. They are a priority. I've told Mr. Anderson that. I've told his vice president that. And Mr. Anderson is new to KLEA, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with him. Just real quickly, things are looking good in the general fund. We are nearing closure of our structural deficit in the general fund. The economy seems to be improving. These are all things that, this is all good news, and it's getting us into a situation where we can hopefully make some decisions. When last we sat down with Mr. Anderson, it was agreed upon that priority one for them, meaning if you don't fix this, you can't move on to fix anything else that's more important, was to increase entry-level deputy salaries and bring them to a level, on level with BPD. And so your board, almost immediately, in good faith, with our commitment to Mr. Anderson and his vice president, I can't remember the gentleman's name, increased salary levels 19%. In addition to that, our officers in the Sheriff's Department are eligible for a special pay, which is not eligible for BPD, of 4%. And the sheriff has the prerogative and the flexibility to bring entry-level people in at any place in the salary range that he wishes in order to be competitive. That was a big deal. It's not everything. It's a it's a quarter, even if that, of the solution. We've got a lot more work to do, but it is a sign of hope, and it is a sign of your board's commitment, continuing commitment to address issues within the Sheriff's Department. So we've got a lot of work to do. I would ask that the membership of KLAA stick with us. Words do matter on both sides. We read all the comments, or at least a lot of them, but words do matter. And again, I just want to reiterate that the Sheriff's Department has been a priority and remains a priority with my office as it concerns the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. Thank you for being here, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Bet. Any other public statements this morning? Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, before the next speaker, I need to
I'm
tell...
sorry.
Excuse me just a second. I need to announce that I have jury duty today, and I'm about to have to show up at court across town. So
thank you.
I'm going to leave. I will hope to be back by this afternoon.
Thank you. Sorry. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. My name is Diane Byrne, and I'm a member of the Bakersfield 3 Mothers of Missing and Murdered Children. And I'm here today to talk about the same thing that our public official, safety official just talked about. Our public safety is in crisis. Every day on the breaking news stories, there are many stories. Last year, there were over 100 homicides. They talked about missing children, missing adults. We currently have a missing McFarland official, elected official. Rape, sex trafficking, gun manufacturing, drug manufacturing, auto theft, mail theft. We talked about that yesterday. Burglaries. My neighbors were held at gunpoint by a rifle being robbed in a upscale neighborhood. Our business storefronts are being vandalized and their employees are being threatened. Bodies are being found burned, bludgeoned, hands chopped off, and partially decapitated. Human remains are being found in backyards, neighborhood slumps, orchards, train boxcars, last week silos, the Kern River, and Lake Buena Vista. In 2018, my son James Kolstad was one of these breaking news stories. He was a homicide victim of a drive-by shooting. His two friends, Micah Holzenbeek and Bailey Despot, went missing. We found Micah's arm in the Kern River. We have yet to find Bailey to bring her home. Us moms, along with friends, family, and community members, have spent countless hours searching for them due to lack of county funds. We have had other mothers and family members across Kern County reach out to us with their stories. One common thread in all the stories is the belief and understanding that our law enforcement is overworked, understaffed, and underfunded. In LA County, each homicide detective is only allowed to investigate 4 cases a year. That's it. That's not the case in our county. Their caseload gets bigger and bigger every day with less and less help. Now, our story went national. It made the national news. It's been to 56 countries. And it's amazing how the other day, one of our mothers went out to Lake, or actually it was yesterday, went out to Lake Isabella where they were dragging it for a body of a drowned victim from Los Angeles. How many officers out there had never heard of the Bakersfield 3? So imagine how many of our community members have not heard about our safety crisis, and how many of our members were unable to hear that the 1-cent sales tax increase would have made a huge difference. I believe that we can do more, and that we can rally together. Closing our sheriff's gang unit is unacceptable. We need to be adding offers, not cutting them back. Our county has some of the finest law enforcement officers in the state of California, and our training is second to none. We need funding to be able to keep them. We need funding to be able to train them, and we need funding to be able to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs. When you think about all these breaking stories, stop and think about our men that go out there every day and risk their lives to handle these stories and the things that they must be going through. Think about their dedication and staying on here without a raise in 10 years. That's dedication. We all need to rally together, and we all need to get the word out. We need an emergency county tax increase to help fund our law enforcement. I'm asking that you place on your agenda to vote to place on the next ballot in March 2020 a temporary 1-cent tax increase to include a sunset clause and an oversight citizens committee. Now, we all know no one wants to be the one known for raising taxes, but what about being known for being courageous enough to stop the public safety crisis, help victims, their families, by funding our law enforcement? It's not about raising taxes. It's about public safety. And when I looked at Mr. Scrivener's interview and I looked at our sheriff's interview, I could feel the stress of them telling us, Mr. Scrivener, that was saying that we have to honor our past obligations and that there's not enough funding to do that, to be able to give them the money that they need. And how it was horrible to see our sheriff tell us that the gang unit is being closed. It's like putting an open, flashing sign on the Bakersfield sign. Welcome to Bakersfield, and come if you're criminals and be here, because we don't have enough money to stop your crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, I'm sorry, I was about to say, any other public statements?
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Jane Parent, Bailey Despot's mom. I'm here to follow up what Diane had to say.
Can you give us your name again, please, for the record?
Jane Parent,
Thank you.
with 2 R's. As a victim, a mother of a victim, my daughter's a victim of a crime. We still haven't found her. She has the right, I have a right to be safe and have law enforcement in the county. I live in the county. I've dealt with the sheriffs. They work very hard. They do need funding. And because of lack of funding, when people call in with tips or somebody gives us a private tip of where to go look, search and rescue can't go look because they don't have funding to go look for every time somebody says, oh, go look here. So I go look. Cheryl goes and looks. We go look. With a shovel I carry in my car and a stick to look for shallow graves, and to look for bones. And just last month, I did go and look in a spot off Highway 65 with Diane, and we did find some bones. We took them to the coroner. They were animal bones. But we need to have the tax added to the ballot next year because we need more county sheriffs and deputies and detectives and homicide detectives, and especially proper equipment for search and rescue. The body still hasn't been found in Lake Isabella. I don't know if they borrowed from Tulare again with the better sonar. But something has to be done. Every day a dead body's found, or bones. And I, too, have talked to several officers this last week. It would have been the Shafter BPD with the silo. The 2 officers I spoke to first at the site, because I go out to these places to see if it's my daughter, they had not heard of the Bakersfield 3. Or my daughter being a missing person, which that's like part of the community. People, every officer in every part of Kern County should know about every missing person, to be on the lookout for them. And I don't know how to spread that word to all the different, substations and stuff across the county. I've been trying to do my best for that. I leave flyers everywhere I go and cards. So I would just like to ask that the 1 cent sales tax be voted on to be placed on the ballot for March. And if some way there's some kind of emergency funding that can be given to the county to help us victims find the killers and our children and stop this, because it's horrible. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Cheryl Holsenbake. Thank you. My oldest son, Micah, was both missing and murdered. And my family's been intimately involved with law enforcement in this county, including the sheriff's department and the coroner, within the past year, over a year. We have been especially connected to search and rescue. They may not know that, but they are my heroes. The volunteers that do this for no money and no recognition still need tools. They still need supervisors that can interact with them about cases. They still need training and supplies, and that takes money. We've worked with detectives. We've worked in concert with, in meetings with both the Sheriff's Department and Bakersfield Police Department. And in a county where there are so many pockets of city and county, it can just be the matter of crossing the street over who responds and over how close someone is and can be there quickly to help someone in dire straits. I'm amazed at the volunteer work, particularly that the Sheriff's Department coordinates. And I'm particularly touched by the work that they do, both to search for and care for our dead. The remains that have been found for Micah, it's just an arm and a hand. And right now, we don't have those for burial because they're being cared for by our coroner and his staff. And we know where they are, and we know they're safe. I voted for our tax the first time around, the 1% tax, sales tax. And I begged everyone I knew to vote for it because I knew what was coming. I know enough about business and economics to know that you can't have people without competitive wages. It just doesn't work. And we knew what was going to happen. We knew individuals would be leaving and going other places for higher pay. And I think maybe the voters in the county, especially in the rural county part of our county where I live, I don't know that the message I don't know that individuals really understood the ramifications. And I just want to tell you and tell the Sheriff's Department that, and the coroner, of course, that I stand ready, my friends and I stand ready to help spread the information and education that our residents need to make good decisions at the ballot box. And I'm asking you to give us another chance to talk to our fellow citizens and our fellow voters and ask them to reconsider an additional sales tax for law enforcement in the coroner's office. if you would please vote to place that option on our next ballot in 2020, I think we can make a real difference, and I think we can help educate voters about the seriousness of this emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Other public statements today?
I think it's an honor to be here. Thank you. My name is Douglas McAfee. Longtime resident of Kern County, Bakersfield for 50 years. And for a quarter of a century, president of Bakersfield Normal, the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws. And I want to thank you for listening, and also for the public too, and for previous three speakers for having the courage to come up here and speak. It's not easy to speak, especially on issues which can be very emotional. I'm doing that now because, like, I fought for decades for access to cannabis for people who needed it. I needed it, and I have cancer. I had cancer last year, and it's like all the work, which not myself, but everyone has done to get access to cannabis. I just want to let you know how terrible it is to be turned away from medicine. And you know that it's good because they're closed and there's a note on the door. And I've never had to face this before. I just always had to go to my heart and my compassion. But it's not always been nice and easy for me to talk because I'm so emotional, and lots of times I get angry. And I know why people are angry now. I've always been angry, but it's like, I want to be compassionate like my mother was. And like I know a lot of women are. I'm so glad that women are getting more involved in politics because, yeah, I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful for law enforcement too, because they've helped me many times. And so I'm not asking for money. I just want to let you know that I appreciate what we all are doing. And think about, the opiate addict, or think about people that need just to have access to help themselves. Because I want women to help themselves. I want women to make decisions for themselves for abortion. And I want, the homeless people to get help in the streets. I see it all the time. I just want to say thank you for listening to me and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public statements this morning? Seeing none, that takes us to board member announcements and reports. Or you want to speak to the last?
I do.
Thank you. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman Couch, appreciate it. And to the moms who, every time you're here, is a kind of stunning experience that's hard to characterize. So excuse me. I find you to be so inspiring. So incredibly selfless. My apologies. I am interested in exploring this issue with you and to discuss openly and honestly and respectfully with my colleagues the challenges and opportunities that are presented by what you have discussed. And I thank you for thinking about this community. It reminds me very much, this conversation in particular, about an experience that I had in law school, my second year of law school in the Midwest, Northwest Indiana, not too far from Notre Dame, Mick, just down the road. I spent about a year externing in Gary, Indiana, the home of our president, Donald Trump, as well as Michael Jackson, kind of a famous place in its own right. And at one time, an incredibly thriving, brilliant economy, steel mill economy, like many places in the Midwest. And after that economy began to crumble, that community began to change. And the year that I spent there, I spent embedded in that community, working with folks filing for bankruptcy, and a very different world than one in which they had grown up in, with a really vibrant community and a stellar economy. Well, that now is one of the most violent cities in America. I lived it and saw it, and it broke my heart, and I see it happening here, frankly. And what's incredible is that it doesn't have to be that way, and I know that. The violence, callousness, what we do and how we treat each other is up to us. The kind of community that we have is up to us. It isn't necessarily one way, but it can become a complete melee if we don't pay attention to these markers. And this is so profoundly problematic at this point. It's pretty terrifying. And you all are the most incredible reminder of just how serious, tragic, and horrific, callous violence can be. And so I would like to ask my CAO how we discuss this moving forward. If it's to place it on the agenda, I'd like to ask my colleagues their opinion. I certainly respect their perspective entirely, but I think this body needs to take this issue much more seriously than we have. And I so appreciate what you do to come here and lift your head and ask for this community to do better. So thank you. But Ryan, how should we proceed?
Chairman Couch, Supervisor Perez, proceed specifically on what item?
Okay,
what
I'll make a
action?
referral to you. If you can
Okay.
come back and help us have a full and thorough discussion about placing a sales tax measure on the March 2020 ballot. I know December 6th is the deadline to place something on the ballot. I remember that date because it's my birthday. But nonetheless, I know we do have a deadline by which we need to take the issue up, if we will, and perhaps there won't be consensus on this board. That remains to be seen. But certainly I'd like to have that discussion with my colleagues, so I'd like to make a referral now to bring that issue back to us and help us have a healthy conversation about what kind of community we want to have.
I will do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any
And to the
other-
moms, thank you again. Chairman, thank you so
Certainly.
much for your graciousness.
Sure.
Thank you to the three of you so much. Keep coming. It matters, as you know.
Thank you for being here today, ladies. Appreciate it. Are there any other public statements? Seeing none, go to board member announcements and reports. Seeing none of those, we just need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.